Hi, my name is Glenn Hasselman. Just making this video for the free accounting software users to show you guys how to fix a common but hopefully not too common payroll error with the finalization. So what the error is that sometimes income statements can get duplicated. So if the employee goes and logs into their MyGov to do their tax return, they could see that there was a duplicated income statement like this. So in this case, they've got two income statements from the one employer. Now, there's a number of ways or reasons this can happen, because you could have, switched payroll software partway through the year, or you could have, even used free accounting software, but then, close that file and then started a new file, and then it can duplicate things. The way the ATO works out whether the payroll lodgement is related to, let's say, the one income statement. So these things are now called income statements. They used to be called group certificates, then payment summaries. Now they're called income statements. And the way they work out that a lodgement relates to an income statement is by the BMS ID, which stands for Business Management System ID, and the employee number. So the BMS ID relates to your software installation and is for the whole system, and the employee number just relates to that one employee. Some large companies probably have, multiple payroll systems, so they might have several BMS IDs, and it might be correct in that case that if an employee did get paid by the two different systems, there should be two records there. In that case, they're just going to finalize both of them and everything's all good. However, for the micro businesses that we deal with, that's rarely the case. So if they are getting duplicate income statements, it's something to fix. So I'll show you where these ID numbers are in free accounting software, and how to zero out one of these things. Now, so I've got this file that I've just demonstrated how to do the final pay, finalization of the payroll, and this should be, let's say, all correct, and you've done the finalization. So you've got that correct. Your only problem is that there's some sort of wayward duplicate income statement on the employee's record. So we don't want to touch anything of these pay slips. We want that to stay there, and because that is correct. So, but I'll just show you where the ID number comes from. So if we go to into the payslip, under the pay event info, there is a thing called employees payroll ID. Okay, and free accounting software assigns some really long weird number to it, and the idea being that it's a random number and it's not going to clash with other employees' ID numbers. That or the business management system ID is under the My Business Details page, and it always defaults to number 1. Okay, you can change it to whatever you want, although if you change it, you should try to do that on 1 July, so that again, if you change these things partway through the year, that's how you create duplicate records. Anyway, just leaving it as 1 works fine. Okay, if we go to the counterparties, click on the employee payroll details. In the employee's record, it doesn't show you that ID number. It's sort of behind the scenes. And I had thought that people wouldn't need to know, but when things go wrong, then you do need to know. Everything goes smoothly, mostly you wouldn't need to know, but sometimes it happens that you need to know. So if we go to the TFN declaration, we have employees payroll ID. Now it's blank, which means the software is going to use the default ID, but you can override it here. So it only displays it here if you're going to override it. As I mentioned, this file, this employee has the correct figures on this record, so we do not want to change this employee, but we do want to zero out the duplicate record in the ATO system. So what we want to do is set up an employee with the right identifier and then send the 0 across to the ATO. Now, first thing to point out here is with this Business Management Systems ID, it's just one, and if we looked at the MyGov, we could see that the Business Management Systems ID was this big number here. Now, we can, so this relates to that second line of the on the list of income statements here. So that if we wanted to zero out that 20,000, we would need to get that BMS ID. Now that's likely to have been lodged with a software that wasn't free accounting software, because other, free accounting software defaults to BMS ID 1. But we can set that BMS ID up over here. So we can just go, whatever, and set that up. I think it's best, if you are going to change the BMS ID, to actually create it in a new file. So you could just go F and new and create a new file with the separate BMS ID. Although you could use the same file, you just remember to change your BMS ID back to the number 1 after doing that lodgement. Okay. The other thing you want to do is set up the counterparty. So let's say we just go add new counterparty, and what we want to do is put the employee's name, but we also just want to flag not to use this counterparty on an ongoing basis for different pay slips. Okay, this is just going to be a one-off pay slip to zero it out. To save the counterparty, you can put in some payroll details, and importantly, you need to go to the TFN declaration page and fill in all these details. Okay, you don't need to lodge the TFN declaration, but it just is a page to collect the information that it needs. The important thing here is to put the payroll ID. So if we're trying to zero out this income statement here, the payroll ID was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, hang on, what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you'd fill in all the other stuff there, I suppose, and then click save. We can go to the batch, we can create a new batch, zero out income statement. We're going to do it as an update event. So we're making everything the 30th of the 6th, 21, and then save. Go to the transactions, new payslip, and pick up the correct employee. and it's just got some zeros there. Now the other thing to point out here is that the employee's payroll ID is the 123456. Okay, so save that. Then navigate to the single touch payroll lodge page, and over here you could go and lodge that. On this page, okay, system ID 1. Okay, so for example, if I was to change that, then go to the lodgement page, that comes through there. So this is, you got to set up that BMS ID to match the BMS ID of the income statement that you're trying to zero out, and make the employee's payroll ID match the payroll ID of the income statement that you're going to zero out, and then you can just put in your password and click lodge, and that will then zero out that income statement. So that's how you do it. One difficulty with this is that you have to know what this BMS ID and the employee number is, and this comes from the employee's MyGov account. Okay, if you have got access to your old accounting software, you could get the information from there. A bit of an issue is that you're probably trying to zero it out using your new software, and you probably don't have access to the old software, and that makes it difficult to get this information. With that in mind, I actually made a change to the software to avoid free accounting software users having that problem, because what I did was I've changed it so that when you click when you click print the payslip, you'll have this employee ID stated right there. So if I just zoom in, yep, the employee ID is now printed on the payslip, because previously I was sort of hopeful that it was something people wouldn't need to really worry about. But I think that if you're emailing payslips to employees, at the very worst case scenario, when your computer completely dies or whatever, you'll have a copy of that payslip in your email that you could retrieve to get that information. So yeah, all right. I hope that if you are unlucky and find yourself in that situation, that this video has given you the info you need to zero out that the extra income statement. And thanks for watching.